Right, I've just had my COVID jab, so if I seem a little loopy, it's probably because of that. In fact, it's really actually probably because of me. But anyway, how did useful meditation come to be? It's a long story. I've actually already recorded a take of this. It ended up being about an hour and a half long, or an hour and 15 minutes long. I'm not too sure. But I wanted to take it again, make it a bit more concise, and also I was naming names, and I think that's the wrong way to go with this. So let's just start at the very beginning. It's a personal story, so I have to make it personal. So a few years ago, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are aware, that know me anyway, that know who I am and what I've been through recently, that I was in a dark place. I had a really rough time. I was finding it really hard to communicate with anyone. I was finding it hard to communicate to my psychiatrists and my doctors what was actually going on, because I was in the grip of essentially a mania for quite some time after it, and then an immediate depression that lasted, I want to say 2 years. I couldn't get out of it. I couldn't find anything that would give me any sort of respite. And it got worse and worse. And so 2016 comes along, or the summer, 2017. That summer comes along and I start looking into meditation. My whole life I'd flirted with meditation, and I'd even been practicing meditation for some time. I tried, right, let's run through them. Initially, I tried compassion meditation because I thought that would be the most beneficial in terms of, you're focusing on the positive aspects of an emotional state. And to me, I thought that's just brilliant. That's exactly what I needed. I needed something to abide in, a good emotional state. That's what I thought. And I practiced for about a month fairly regularly, and then I just dropped off because I wasn't really getting any results outside of the meditation, and I wasn't really getting the desired results while I was meditating, so it was kind of a bust. So I started trying Zen, or Zazen meditation, and that was the same. I was just floating on the top of my brain, looking at my thoughts. I wasn't doing anything. There wasn't anything that was genuinely happening to say that this was beneficial. So I got frustrated, and then as I'm growing up, I'm starting to discover a lot more music. I'm getting into different stuff, and obviously it's hard not to discover the Beatles. So when I did discover them, and I heard about Maharishi, I heard about the White Album and how it was made in Rishikesh, and I thought, you know what, this is probably worth something. If those guys who did loads of drugs before that thought this is good, then there's got to be something to it, or otherwise, like, it would be really tough to convince someone that's been through all of that stuff that this is just as good. So they must have had some reason why it was good. At the time, though, I didn't know how to get to the Transcendental Meditation Organization, which is what the Beatles learned. So I just abandoned the idea, and then eventually in 6th year or 5th year, I was given the opportunity to study Mind Store, which was a New Agey type guided meditation that Richard Branson had been putting in schools, and that reignited my interest. Because I didn't really find the Mind Store stuff beneficial in terms of its emotion impact. I found it much more practical. It was about memorizing stuff or recalling things, and there was some relaxation stuff in it, but it was kind of crap. There was this whole idea of you go in to you build a house in your head, and you go into your house, and in the foyer there's an instrument of power, be that whatever, is got a computer that's magic or a guitar or whatever, like me. Then you go into your shower, you have a magical shower in your house, and you clean yourself off from the day, and it's like, okay, all of this kind of makes sense. Like, I get what you're trying to do, but it's not actually effectual. And at that point, I thought, you know what, this is probably all garbage. I'm just going to abandon this and move on with my life. And then my first major depression happened. I came back home to live with my mum. And then I found this CD that you could order online. It was the beginning of this new age audio movement where it was like, listen to these particular frequencies and you'll feel this. And to be honest, I actually felt like I got some benefit out of it. But the problem was that even back then, you were tethered to a device. You absolutely needed to have this device and the CD in working condition. And it wasn't portable. There was nowhere you could take it. Apart from a Walkman or things like that. But that's. Then you've got batteries, and more logistical concerns are brought up through having devices and media that you need to actually use. So again, I abandoned meditation and fell into a whole other thing. So we'll leave all that out. In terms of where I went after that, it wasn't a good place. Let me put it like that. So eventually, 2017 comes and I'm in the grip of this mad depression. Again, another huge depression. I had a mania throughout the summer of 2016, and then 2 years essentially, a year and a half, sorry, real poor mental states and a major depression that saw me wind up in the hospital. It was that bad. And it was in this point that Twin Peaks Season 3 came out. And it reignited my interest in meditation, because David Lynch is quite the proponent of such. And by the kindness of my parents and my brother and many other people who facilitated me getting this, I learned how to properly meditate the Vedic way. And the instant I started meditating, my life was changed. It was like watching gears just meet for the first time and start operating. It's like the teeth all just lining up perfectly. Everything's falling into place. And I walk out after that first session into Jamaica Street, or the street that's above Jamaica Street, Union Street, maybe. Went down to Tim Hortons, and as I'm looking around, I'm like, the buildings are towering over me, and the sounds are so wonderful and clear, and the colours are sharp, and I'm elated, absolutely elated. But there's a couple of problems. As I'm walking down to Tim Hortons, the realisation strikes me that there's no fucking way I'll ever get any of my friends to do this. Not one, not a single chance. And I was like, crap, here's this amazing thing that I'm going to have, and I'm going to be alone, and I'm not going to be able to give it to anyone. I thought, right, okay, because they make you promise that by signing a contract that you're not going to teach it to anyone, and I still haven't, and I never will. I'll never teach people what I was given that day, but I'll teach people what I learned about meditation from that day, in terms of the practice that it actually was, and the elimination of that particular group's dogma. So as I'm walking down to Tim Hortons, I get my cup of coffee and a donut, and I'm sitting in the wee seating area, and I'm mulling it over. I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to have to be alone in this, then I'm going to throw myself into it, and I'm going to really find out. I want to teach this. Somehow I want to teach this. I'm going to find out a way to do it, and then that'll be my path. That'll be my life path. So I go home and I get mad into it. I'm meditating twice, 3 times, 4 times a day, sometimes up to like 2 or 3 hours in a full day, which would be 9 times a day. And it was amazing. Like, the first week was really rough for me. The first week I was absolutely crippled with depression and crying all the time and wanting to sleep all the time. And And it was just because I'd been dealing with so much stuff. It was like years and years and years of depression finally seeping its way out like lactic acid from a muscle. And I just thought, this is rough. I don't know if I can continue this. So I looked into it a bit more online, and there were a lot of voices saying with this particular meditation, it's like, yeah, that can happen. Just bear with it, keep moving. It's rough, but once you finish that week, 2 weeks, you're going to feel incredible every time you do it. And there have been some experiences in my life that taught me to treat things like that, particular medications and things. And I thought, right, okay, I can handle that. I can handle just keeping my head down and going for it. So as I'm going for it, I'm reading more and more about this stuff, and I'm finding forums and places and films and YouTube videos about critical aspects of this particular group's meditation and their practices and their education policies within themselves that made me start to second guess what was going on. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna keep going for now. I'm gonna go up and I'm gonna keep attending their lectures, but I'm not gonna allow them to force anything on me with it unquestioningly. I'm gonna really take them to task. I'm gonna make sure that they understand that I know what's up and that they can't fool me, and I'm not gonna be subject to a lot of the mental games they play in order for you to agree with something. They have some very funny tricks that, like, the thing about meditation is that you're very, very suggestible for the 10 to 15 minutes afterwards. You're in a very delicate state of mind, and the susceptibility can be taken advantage of by the wrong people. And I felt when I was attending these meetings that was what was occurring, and it greatly upset me. So I stopped going eventually, and I think the killer point was that there was a meeting where we were talking about alternative states of consciousness, and they only acknowledged the 4 or 5 that they have written from their particular scripts. And I thought, you know what, this is not for me. And I started looking into more of it and where I could go with it. If I wanted to stay in the group, what would I do? So I started looking at the advanced techniques, and these were thousands of pounds worth of stuff, like thousands of pounds per course. And all of them were very negligible in terms of their benefits. And I thought, this is it. This is what they do. They get you in with the initial product, and then they try and upsell you on these crazy diets, crazy teas, crazy incenses, all sorts of stuff. And these advanced techniques that end up in yogic flying, which is a pure invention. It's not a Hindu tradition or anything. It's a pure invention. Not that makes something necessarily bad. It's just that you can't pretend that it's this teaching that's from on high without any data, without any real evidence. It was insane to me that they were, because they present it all like this is all very, initially they go, this is very scientific, we've got this pack of bloody studies that we've done and published in different journals, like real academic journals, and you can go and corroborate that stuff. And it's like, yeah, that's all true, but you've also been accused of manipulating the results. And a lot of the stuff that you say, like using Sanskrit mantras and not mantras of the person's own language, seems to be incorrect. Like from what the actual science says, it's a temporal lobe activation thing. So when you're meditating very deeply, it's your temporal lobe that's active, or the most active. And they didn't really want to talk about how the mantras were affecting the temporal lobe activation, which seemed absolutely barmy to me. Like, you're not going to talk about one of the most fundamental principles of your meditation. And that was the point, or one of the points, where when the sort of fulcrum of it all happened, when I just thought, sod these guys, I'm away. All of that was the thing that piled on, the weight. That was the stuff that was like the weight I could bear was full of that stuff until I hit the moment where I thought, you know what, sod these guys. And so after leaving that, I start getting deeply into this idea of open source meditation, where you pay me for my time, but the practice I give you is malleable, and it's up to you how to use it. Essentially, there are things I recommend, but I'm not going to tell you to not experiment with it. And I think people should experiment with their meditation. I think that's part of the fun. The more you experiment with it, the more you bring to it, the more it's yours and the more it's tailored to you. And that means not only is it going to be better, but you're going to be more dedicated to it because it's yours. You've developed it. So I started looking into things like, okay, how do I make this better? Because it's good, but it's not infallible and it's certainly not untouchable. So I thought, right, here we go. And I looked into more stuff like Pavlovian triggers, and that was the first one I tried. Especially when I started moving into longer meditations, I found that the Pavlovian triggers, if developed over a long period of time beforehand, were extremely effective in making you relax quicker and deeper and for longer, especially if you could hold for an hour, which is, it's kind of difficult to do at first, but with the Pavlovian triggers, you can have a trigger phrase that you can say right at the beginning of your meditation, and you'll find your shoulders just completely drop. The muscles in your arms will slacken, and you'll feel this sort of weight being taken off you, the stress of the day sort of melting away like that, really instantly, just unbelievable. And I thought, right, okay, so this is one thing that works, and they're not doing it. So what about something else? I was like, well, what about brown noise? Well, the problem I was having was that there was so much noise in my house, which is not a complaint, it was just a statement of fact. There was a lot of noise in that house at the time, and it wasn't always practical for people to not interrupt me. And so I bought a sign. The sign didn't work, and thought, you know what, I'll look into some way of being able to block the frequencies myself, so that I'm not intruding in anyone else's space, and I'm not compromising my meditation. So I found brown noise, and more recently I found I discovered brown noise first and used that, and that blocked out every frequency I could. And then I started looking for other types of noise, but this is more recently actually, the looking for more types of noise. So I'm using pink noise for relaxation, white noise for concentration. I think you should do other types of meditation when you're doing this. I don't think you should just do useful all the time. You should, mix it up now and again, just to, if you're that kind of interested, you don't need to do it. Useful's perfect on its own. You don't need any other kind of meditation, but it is fun to sort of mix it up a bit. So, discovered these different types of noises, and I was like, okay, this is really cool. So I've got these noise blocking sounds, and I've got my Pavlovian triggers. I wonder if there's something else in Hinduism that I could borrow. And it took many years, and I think one of the things about this has been serendipity. I've not really the stuff I've found hasn't been just. It's rarely been actually finding it through sheer scholarly research. It's actually been accidental, and self-inquiry was that. It was very strange. One day I can't remember what it was. I was looking for meditation videos, and I found this documentary called Unani, which is about a guru. Well, he never said he was a guru, There was a fellow called Ramana Maharishi, Sri Ramana Maharishi, or Bhagavan. And this is a fellow who supposedly realised enlightenment at the age of 16 from a spontaneous inquiry into the nature of his self. And he laid down on the floor mimicking his dad had just died. He laid down on the floor mimicking his dad's corpse and asked himself the question, who am I? And apparently from then on, he spent the next 3 years in a state of utter bliss and found it very difficult to remove himself from that and travel to a holy mountain that he had very great reverence for, where he sat in the temples for a couple of years, wasting away. His body was decaying essentially while he was still alive. He wasn't eating, he wasn't sleeping, he was just consumed in this state of bliss. And I've spoken to this with a couple of guys about this story, and the most common reaction I get is, why would you want to stay in that state? And it's like, well, it's bliss. I didn't really find the answer until like yesterday. The answer is bliss. Why wouldn't you want to stay in that state? People think that life is living and doing things, and it's like, well, no, life is experience. Life isn't necessarily about the stuff we think it's about. That those are illusions that have been set up to knock us down or to keep us at bay from what we actually are. And I'm not saying that it's deliberate. I'm saying that this is just the fact of life, that there are things that are not against us, because that implies some sort of cognition or some sort of thought behind it, but there are barriers set in our way to stop us from realising our full selves, and they're natural barriers. They should be there. We're supposed to have a difficulty finding it. Anyway, self-inquiry I started using when I was very deep in meditation, and at the end, and I find it's the most profound at the end of a meditation, when you're susceptible, when you're very open to ideas, to sit there in peace and quiet and just ask yourself, who am I? Watching the question drop like a stone into like a pebble into a lake. And you don't answer the question. You just let the question go. Once the ripples have stopped, you ask again. It's profound. It melts away your persona. This is something that you can actually travel into real life, and that excited me. The idea that we could move the practice into the real world, not just have the benefits of it in the real world, but actually be like, no, this is a way to live. So if you're angry at something, a great question, if you can catch yourself in that moment of anger, is to say, well, who's angry? And you'll find that when you ask it, and if you've been using self-inquiry during your meditation, you'll find soon that that's really effective. I don't know why it works. I don't know how it works. I would like to actually do a study on it if I could, but I'm not an academic, so there's that. But anyway, so we've discovered the 4 pillars of useful meditation, or at least the 4 fundamental pillars of useful meditation, because I'm open to way more, and I'm always developing useful meditation. I'm always working on it. I'm always thinking about it. My whole life revolves around this practice and making it better and making it good for everyone. Like the whole thing about the financial model, or the business plan for this, is to kind of copy Minecraft in a way. Minecraft started out very cheap. It started about £8.99 or something like that. And then you got all the updates. So for life, you buy once and you get everything forever. That changed when Microsoft got involved, and even slightly before that. But that was the initial plan. And that's what I want for useful. You get all the updates. If we're doing group meditations, there may be donations, or like a donation box or something, or when you come back round, I might, like if you come back round for retraining, it's a tenner instead of the 50. So that's the idea, is that useful came to be through trial, error, and research, and disappointment, and futility, and labour, and then eventually it became this easy thing that you can just give to somebody within 2 hours. And that's what I hope you'll do. I hope you'll listen to this and say, look, if it's 2 hours, and most of that 2 hours, by the way, is just us chatting about where you're at, where you would like to go with this, what you want out of it, and how to do it. So there's a lot of that. But I really hope that you work out some way of making room in your life for this. It's not that you've got to make a space outside your life for it. You make a space within your life for it. Like a loaf, like a loaf makes space in itself to grow. I think that's the way we can look at it. So anyway, thank you very much for making it this far. And I didn't think I was quite as loopy as I thought I was going to be. But thank you so much for listening this far if you've made it. And I hope I've convinced you in some respect to try it. Just to try it. I mean, what you got to lose? 50 quid. Like, 50 quid's nothing. It's nothing, especially compared to, what we spend our money on. You can spend 50 quid at dinner very easily, going to a restaurant, now that restaurants are back. But anyway, what I got out of useful was profound, to say the least. I don't really have depressions anymore. I haven't had a major depression since I was in the grips of one during lockdown for a little while, but that was because of lockdown, and I live alone, so it became very difficult for me to deal with lockdown, and I was meditating maybe a little too much, and I think I was trying to escape reality as opposed to like enliven it. So I would really love it if you could give me a shout on there's a phone listed on the Facebook page, and I think it's on the group as well. But you can join the group. The group's going to be pretty cool from what I can see, and the page is just going to be a bit more perfunctory. But I hope you come to the realization that you can change your life, and you don't need drugs, and you don't need psychiatrists. You can take it into your own hands and start looking after your own mental health. A physician, heal thyself. So I hope that gives you some sort of encouragement to make that decision, or at least deliberate within yourself as to if it's right for you or not. But anyway, I wish all of you all the best. I think you're all wonderful. And you've all been fantastically kind to me in terms of me setting this up. I don't think I could have asked for a better response. So thank you very much, and I wish you nothing but the best in your life, and I hope you're happy, even if you don't come to me. But anyway, take care everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.